If you are under criminal investigation or administrative investigation that may morph into a criminal inquiry, you may or may not know it. And you might not learn about it until something terrible happens, like a raid or a search warrant or an arrest. That is why knowing in advance how to comply with the criminal law of controlled substance prescribing is so important, and why it helps you protect yourself. The corollary is true as well, that if you don't know how to comply and you don't educate yourself on what law enforcement wants and doesn't want to see in a medical practice, you are putting your freedom, livelihood, and license at tremendous risk. A myriad of law enforcement agencies has authority to investigate healthcare professionals. They include the DEA, the Office of Inspector General of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, state medical board agents, state narcotics agents or investigators, sheriff's deputies, and local police. Doctors are licensed and medical practice is regulated by the states, but doctors are also governed by federal laws such as DEA and FDA regulations and the Controlled Substance Act. Same for nurses, physician's assistants, nurse practitioners, and others. Doctors can come to law enforcement attention in any number of ways. Reports of patient overdoses or deaths. Review of pharmacy patient records for signs of patients' drug-seeking behavior. Review of doctors' prescribing rates. Tips from pharmaceutical distributors about doctors who order an unusually high amount of painkillers for dispensing. Suspicion of drug diversion by a doctor, pharmacist, patients or office staff. Use of undercover informants seeking prescriptions from doctors. Media reports about specific practitioners. Citizen complaints to medical boards or local law enforcement agencies. Tips from pharmacies about doctors who send their patients to them under dubious circumstances, and more. How do you know you're being investigated? There are the obvious ways. DEA and medical board or police personnel raid your offices and home, serve search warrants, freeze your bank accounts, confiscate your files and computers, effectively shut down your practice, and start interviewing your patients in search of witnesses against you. Agents show up for an unannounced administrative inspection. Agents call you to talk about things that they have received reports of, and innocuously ask for your help resolving the matter. You get a subpoena to produce patient files and attend a meeting at a medical board office, or you just get arrested. Another danger is that if law enforcement wants to keep the investigation's existence a secret from you, it's pretty easy to do, especially since healthcare professionals are typically upstanding, law-abiding people unaccustomed to dealing with police or thinking like crooks. A patient's strange behavior in asking for a painkiller prescription might indicate that the patient has dependency issues, but you wouldn't ordinarily assume the patient is wearing a wire. That's why compliance with the law of safe and medically legitimate prescribing is so important. It's good medical practice, and it's your safest bet against falling victim to covert and sometimes unfair law enforcement tactics. If an investigation of your practice yields sufficient evidence of a crime, police and prosecutors will act. The charges, usually felonies carrying a prison sentence, will range from unlawful sale or distribution of controlled substances to something called unsafe prescribing, to manslaughter, or even murder if a patient has died from complications of drugs you prescribed. You will be arrested, hauled into court, charged in an indictment or criminal complaint, ordered to not practice medicine as a condition of release on bail, pay for your criminal defense attorney out of your own pocket. You will be featured in the media. Your medical board will initiate an accusation against you. Your reputation and standing in the community will take a huge hit. You may be sued by patients or their survivors. You could be fired from your medical group and dropped by your medical malpractice company. Your patients could be cut off from pharmacies, and if convicted of a crime, you could face incarceration, huge fines, and revocation of your medical or pharmacy license. I welcome you to call or email if you have any questions or if you need help. Remember, you would always tell a person you cared about to go see a doctor now, not later, if they thought there were a medical problem. You deserve the same consideration and care before the fateful knock on the door from an agent carrying a search warrant and ready to do you harm. Follow your own good advice and practice legal wellness. It's just what the doctor's lawyer ordered.